Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How we doing?
Very good.
My name's Phil Nicozisis, and I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida, and I'm a Hippocrates Health Institute health educator, and I'm so glad that you came here tonight. I'd like to welcome the vegans and the pre-vegans here tonight. You know, when you think about it, we were all vegan. We were all born vegan. Before we had the chance to even decide for ourselves how to eat, we were taught something else. But I believe that we have a physiology of peace, and we'll unpack some of these ideas here tonight. In fact, I think I can prove that we were all vegan once. If you take a baby, put it in a playpen, and in that playpen, you put an apple in the playpen and also a rabbit. And every time, without exception, the baby will eat the apple and play with the rabbit. But then as adults, if you see an injured animal on the side of the road or see an injured animal anywhere, your first inclination is to help the animal. But if you were a real carnivore, not a fake carnivore, if you were a real carnivore, you would use that as an opportunity for a meal. If you were a real carnivore, you would pant instead of sweating. You would have real canines, not the canines that we call canines. Canines in name only, I would say. You might consider yourself an omnivore. But I'm here to suggest to you that we seem to be born into this society that says we need to eat animals in order to be healthy and strong, that we need to drink their milk in order to have strong bones, which is a con, that we need to eat meat to get lots of protein, which is another con, which is written in the book of myths, which we'll discuss a little later on. So I'm here to suggest to you, we're not carnivores, we're not omnivores. You know what we are? Even myself, as a vegan, we are culturivores. And so it is. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Total Health from a Vegan Perspective. Because what we're talking about here tonight, we're talking about a diet. We'll do some pretty, I think, rigorous drill down on the dietary benefits of a plant-based diet versus the catastrophe of the animal-based diet. But it's more than a diet, because what does it imply, say, when we go on a diet? It implies we're going to go off the diet, right? So what we're really talking about is a lifestyle. But more than a lifestyle, when you consider that beyond our physical health, which is the first thing we think of when we think of health, when you consider there's also to be appreciated our mental health, also our spiritual health, our societal health, and our environmental health. And eating animals, an animal-based diet, is catastrophic to all of those aspects of health. And a plant-based diet is, I'll say, it's perhaps the master key that actually gives us total health in the human experience. As you can see here from this aerial, this is Hippocrates Health Institute. It is 9 miles from my house. It sits on 50 beautiful acres, and they have a 3-week program where anybody can come. They come from around the world. A 3-week program where they feed you a vegan diet, and there's also psychotherapists and doctors on staff, but they also have a 9-week health educator program. And I went to the health educator program a few years back. Seems like there's a lot of confusing information out there about nutrition. A lot of the information, by the way, is designed to be confusing. You see, the meat and dairy industry are very powerful. They spend a lot of money, not only on the television advertising, but also what we call checkbook science. They write a check, and they tell a university or a laboratory what the conclusions should be. And it's so bad that even on the cover of Time magazine, you'll see that butter somehow is healthy for you. And what they've done is they've taken a playbook from the tobacco industry. The tobacco industry, back then, they uncovered in the corporate documents, all they had to do was confuse people, and they could keep selling cigarettes and making the profit. I'm going to go almost make an overstatement and maybe a bridge too far, but I'm going to give you all you need to know about nutrition. There's 3 things, at least from my perspective. Number 1, all life comes from the sun, therefore eat plants. Let me say it again, let it sink in, and I also like to hear myself talk, because this one is really good. All life comes from the sun, therefore eat plants. A word on the sun. The sun is filled with photon cells. It takes about 100,000 years for one photon cell in the middle of the sun to get to the edge of the sun. And then that photon cell is expelled as sunlight, and takes 8 minutes for the sunlight to get to the earth, to reach our skin, to react with the plants to make photosynthesis. So when we eat vegan, but specifically when we eat raw vegan, it's like getting a sunlight transfusion. About 500 million years ago, the sun started reacting with the plants and started to create 20,000 known phytochemicals. That we come along 500 million years later, phytochemicals meaning plant chemicals. We come along 500 million years later, and we benefit from, we have a symbiotic, from the phytochemicals, the plants, we have a symbiotic relationship with the plants. And if you wanted to have a perfect diet, like this man here was explaining to me, you wanted to live like a saint and walk on water and eat perfectly, you would actually eat raw. You would not cook the food, because it's chemistry, not fantasy. It's an absolute scientific fact that when you cook the food, you kill about 90 to 95% of the nutrition. Specifically, you kill HOPE, hormones, oxygen, phytonutrients, and enzymes. The smell of a kitchen when they're cooking food, that's the smell of the oxygen leaving the food. And James Cameron is coming out with a documentary called Game Changers. It's all about vegan athletes having an athletic edge over all their competitors. Specifically, the nitric oxide reaction in raw plant food is what's giving, among other things, what's giving the vegan athletes their vegan edge. Let's just take one phytochemical that's found in plants. It's found in broccoli. It's called sulforaphane. Now, a word on the phytochemicals before we talk about sulforaphane. There's an army of pharmaceutical company employees in the forests right now trying to discover and understand the phytochemicals so that they can take it to the laboratory and create patent chemicals, intellectual property, known as prescription drugs. They'll never quite duplicate what nature already has provided for us. So in the case of sulforaphane, found in broccoli, but in broccoli sprouts, they're about 100 times more concentrated, the sulforaphane, than broccoli. And if you wanted to actually levitate besides walk on water and have a perfect diet and be a saint, half your diet by weight would actually be sprouts. Because each seed is like a baby tree. It has all of the intelligence of a plant much larger than itself. And so in the case of broccoli sprouts, it's about 100 times more concentrated with sulforaphane. And in 1998, Johns Hopkins University discovered that sulforaphane found in the broccoli sprouts was so effective at zapping cancer tumors. Then they took it one-on-one in a petri dish where cause and effect could not be disputed, and it absolutely killed the cancer tumors. But even more than that, it killed the cancer stem cells, which chemo and radiation actually promote cancer stem cells. Did you know that 94% of the people that get chemo and radiation die of cancer? It doesn't work. Now, I'm not here to totally bash the pharmaceutical industry. I think, the medical industrial complex and the pharmaceutical industry. I think we'd all agree that they are very useful for interventions and episodes. But all too often, the money is in the treatment and not the cure. So all life comes from the sun, therefore eat plants. Number 2, all health centers around the immune system. You see, the reason why we say eat vegan and preferably raw vegan is because all of those phytochemicals coming together boosts the immune system. We call it our green shield. Us vegans call it our green shield. The reason why we say don't put rotting, decomposing flesh in our body is because it freaks the immune system out. And after a while, for example, autoimmune disorders, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, animal protein and our own protein, the body gets confused. The body recognizes it as an invader, and after a while, instead of attacking the animal protein, it attacks our protein. So if your genes are the genetic hand that you were dealt, it shows up in your bones as arthritis. Or if your genes provide that it would be the nerves, it could show up as multiple sclerosis. You see, we are absolutely obsessed with the idea of genetics. The reason is it plays to our preference. We're always looking for that magic bullet. But I'm here to tell you, genetics plays a very small role in whether or not we get sick. That might seem unreasonable, but hear me out. It's actually epigenetics that we should be obsessed about. And what are epigenetics? Epigenetics are gene expression as a result of diet and lifestyle. Of course, genes matter, because without genes, there's no life. But the idea is to let the sleeping dog lie, not allow the bad genes to express themselves. So if we're eating an animal-based diet, which we'll break it down a little bit, we're going to talk about the meats and all the catastrophe that they cause. It lowers the immune system. So if we're not exercising and we're putting bad food in our body, and our attitude's bad too, it freaks the immune system out. It's no wonder people get sick. As far as I'm concerned, folks, we have a cure for cancer. It's called the immune system. You see, anybody 50 years or older has an appreciable amount of cancer cells in their body. But the immune system, it's the immune system's job to keep those cancer cells at a level where you can sustain life well into your old age. And so if we're eating all these foods, especially animal foods, we're not exercising, and maybe our attitude is bad. And by the way, the brain is the most important part of this whole thing, because the mind existed before the food. All life comes from the sun, therefore eat plants, and all health centers around the immune system. Number 3, my favorite, do the things that are good for you and don't do the things that are bad for you. Do the things that are good for the immune system and don't do the things that freak the immune system out. It's simple, but it's not easy, of course. Let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about meat. I checked the statistics in Japan. Heart disease is the number 2 cause of death and number 2 cause of disease in this country. It used to be number 1. It's been overtaken by Alzheimer's. Now, I'm not an expert on Alzheimer's, but if you read the report that Dr. Alzheimer's made, he called the yellow substance on the brain of the lady, he called it plaque, a plaque. So meat has cholesterol. And as far as I'm concerned, heart disease is a 95% lifestyle choice. But also has saturated fat, which can lead to type 1 and type 2 diabetes. It also has hormones. And I see teenagers with acne. That's also a lifestyle choice. We're taking in the hormones of the animal. And this, specifically estrogen, the estrogen hormone, has been linked to invasive breast cancer and invasive prostate cancer. Meat also has viruses. So even if you ate perfect meat, so-called happy meat, but there is no happy meat, where they were in the pasture and maybe you played classical music and they just maybe had one bad day, the day that they were executed against their will, when they would do anything to get out of the situation that they were in, you would still be getting viruses, including chicken pox, which actually comes from cows, and also butcher's warts. Chicken. Maybe people also think that chicken might not be the best. It also has a lot of sodium. It also, 97% of the chicken breast has fecal matter. I spoke last week in Tokyo, and the translators and we had a really nice meeting beforehand. I thought we got all the terminology down, and when I said that chicken breast had 97% fecal matter, she got stuck on that word fecal matter. She didn't know what it meant, and so I had to came right out. I said, it's filled with shit. And so everybody got it. It got a little bit of a reaction. Milk, dairy. We call that liquid meat. There's 24 proteins in milk. None of them are good for you, specifically casein. Casein has been linked to invasive cancers, actually turbocharging tumors. We do not have, casein is a protein meant to be digested by the baby cow. We do not have that enzyme that the baby cow has. So really what milk is, it's a bovine growth cocktail designed to take a small animal and turn it into a giant beast into a very short period of time. And then we have eggs. Harvard Health Study. 1 egg per day is equivalent to smoking 5 cigarettes a day for various reasons. There's other problems with eggs. So whether we're talking about big meat like cows, whether we're talking about little meat like chickens, or whether we're talking about liquid meat, which is essentially, if you're vegetarian, you're basically ingesting liquid meat. Or if you're addicted to cheese, known as congealed milk meant for someone else's baby. And why are we addicted to this cheese? Did you know that milk contains a chemical called casomorphine? Just like the name implies. Queso, cheese, the Spanish name for cheese, and morphine. It's designed to be addictive. It's designed to make the baby cow want more of the mother's milk. Big meat, little meat, congealed milk, congealed liquid meat, eggs, pre-meat. I think people in Japan understand that this is not in our best interest. But then I would ask the Japanese, why are we eating swimming meat? Why are we eating swimming meat? It's not good for us. It's not in our best interest, and here's why. It's still meat. It has cholesterol, which is the number 2, as we said, the number 2 disease and cause of death in Japan. Shellfish has 4 times the cholesterol as meat does. And of course, because it's swimming meat, it actually is meat and it's flesh. And so when they are hoisted out of the boat, they're flopping around on the boat, it's a very foreign atmosphere for their flesh. And therefore, the lipid flesh has been shown to be carcinogenic within 30 minutes of being hoisted out of the water. Fish are very smart. There's a great book called What a Fish Knows. Fish, just like other vertebrate animals, that means animals with a spine, are endowed with an ability to suffer. They're endowed with an ability to experience joy. Fish specifically, many of them have a life partner. They're monogamous. They can remember mazes 1 year later. Many have a built-in GPS system and can have migratory patterns that we would never be able to comprehend as humans. So So that is swimming meat. So whether we're talking about all the different meats, it violates our basic health. But what about other aspects of health? What about our mental health? What about our mental health? When we're eating animal products, in a way, we're eating attitudes. We're eating attitudes. We're eating the idea of exclusion. We're eating elitism. We're eating might makes right. We're eating might makes right. On the factory farm, they actually have to give the animals drugs for depression, insomnia, and sleeplessness. And then we go to the doctor in record numbers for what? Depression, anxiety, and sleeplessness. Animals, the food animals specifically, like to be with families. For example, chickens like to be with a rooster. They like to lay eggs and nurture the eggs. Cows like to raise their calves. As soon as the cow is born, the baby cow is taken away from the mother and the baby will cry for days. And so I think it's not a stretch of a connection to observe that all too often in the human experience we suffer from broken relationships and the same kind of suffering that we cause the animals. And it affects, I believe, our mental health. But then what about our spiritual health? What about our spiritual health? All of the world's major religions espouse a diet without the shedding of blood. The Hindus have ahimsa. Have you heard of the principle of ahimsa, which is nonviolence with all creatures, including ourselves? The Buddhists have the same concept. I've been eating all around Kyoto and Tokyo this month, and I know I can go to many places and ask for a Buddhist meal, and everybody knows what that means. And in the Jewish and the Christian traditions, we have thou shalt not kill. And I believe that over time, it was watered down, because I don't recall seeing an asterisk next to thou shalt not kill. We're eating attitudes. All of us in this room, anybody here on the street walking by would, I think, relate to the ideas of equality, justice, freedom, treating women better. On the factory farm, the cows are impregnated over and over again against their will. It's really nothing short of sexual violence. So all these things that we would be against, and you might even, as a female, major in gender studies on the college campus. And everything on our plate when we eat animal foods is the exactly opposite of these values. But that's religion. What about spirituality? It seems to me the spiritual breakthrough is when we honor and respect those who cannot protect themselves. If I walk up to this young man right here, Vince, and I smack him in the head, he likely will retaliate. So at least in part, or he may call the police, and the government might come down on my head, and I might do some jail time, and so on. So at least in part, if you think about it, we're nice to people because they can retaliate. But it seems to me the spiritual breakthrough, whether you're religious or not, and I believe if you're religious, forgive me, I'm not a sage, I'm not a holy person, but anybody who eats animals who's religious, I believe, has a spiritual ceiling that they will never go above. So I think the spiritual breakthrough is how we treat those who cannot defend themselves. And once you make that connection, you realize, at least from my experience, that all life is a beautiful tapestry of interconnectedness. All life is a beautiful tapestry of interconnectedness. And therefore, we should honor and respect sentient beings who, just like us, were put on this earth to live purposeful lives. That what's important to them is in many ways like what's important to us. What about society's health? The idea is that we'll never have a society where we treat each other well so long as there's violence required by our food choices. Now, I'm not that smart. I didn't come up with this myself. Actually, thousands of years ago, they thought of it. A man named Pythagoras, how many people took geometry class and suffered through the Pythagorean theorem? You have to take that, right? Well, he wasn't just a mathematician, he was also a philosopher. And he said, so long as man kills animals, mankind will kill each other. Now, more modern times, George Bernard Shaw said, as long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. But that's just philosophy and theory. Let's connect the dots of history. I'm here to suggest to you that the institution of war and armed conflict actually started because of animal agriculture. If you look through history, starting about 10,000 years ago when we started to herd animals against their will, the way to create wealth was to go to war and take the other people's cows. As a matter of fact, the Hindu word for war means the desire for more cows. It was the first and perhaps still the greatest get-rich-quick scheme. And I think we have to really appreciate that we live in a time, in the here and now, that somebody can invent something like Uber and become a billionaire. That somebody could create WhatsApp and sell it for $300 million per employee. And on and on. Because throughout history, believe it or not, and we take it for granted, it was more virtuous to actually get wealth by stealing people's stuff than it was to have voluntary exchange known as free market capitalism. So when you went to war and you lost and you weren't killed in the battle, guess what? You became a slave. So the two institutions, the direct result of eating animals are war and slavery. And that's the societal health that we suffer from when we eat these animals. The last aspect of health that I think comprise total health, physical, mental, spiritual, societal, but also what about environmental? You see, there's no way we can call ourselves environmentalists if we eat animals. No way. The greenhouse gases from animal agriculture are more than jet aviation and cars combined. In the United States, 45% of the country is covered with animal agriculture, either the grazing fields or the land required to feed the animals. It's a terribly wasteful system. 52% of the municipal water goes to feed the animals. And you go to places like California, and there's a drought warning, and you can't wash your car, and you can't water your lawn. And we have to have these water-saving shower heads, and our toilets will never be as good as yours. We have really bad ones where they're water saver, you have to flush them a few times just to take care of your business. Now that might sound like too much information, but the truth is, once you become vegan, you realize you've been constipated your whole life and you didn't even know it. In round numbers, it's a terribly wasteful system. Did you know about 1 billion people in the world go hungry every year? Really around 900 million. Let's round it up because there's another 1 billion people that eat what we call the standard American diet, the SAD diet, the Western diet of beef, chicken, cheese, eggs, fish, and so on, and processed food. So 1 billion people go hungry because that grain goes over to feed the animals. And then those people get sick from eating the animals. And so it's really an evil system. But to put a number on it, and you can check this out at a great documentary called Cowspiracy, and cowspiracy.com is the website. It's a 15-to-1 ratio. 15 units are required to bring an animal product to your plate versus 1 unit of plant agriculture required. So plant agriculture helps in the human experience support the idea of total health. Let's talk a little bit about the Book of Myths. There are things written in the Book of Myths that essentially keep us in the system of justifying our eating animal products. For example, needing to eat meat to get protein. All you have to do is Google vegan bodybuilders to see that you don't need to eat meat to get protein. That you have to drink milk to get strong bones. And that was a total con job, because if you look at the science, you know that eating milk and dairy products actually weaken the bones and lead to bone failures, because the body tries to neutralize the acid condition in the body when we eat these products. And it goes into the bones, pulls out the calcium and the magnesium, and people who eat lots of meat and dairy are literally pissing away their skeleton, leading to bone failure. Whatever the arguments are to justify eating animal products that are written in the Book of Myths, here's what I hear from a lot of people. And by the way, and I'm not judging them, because in order to have a deeper meaning of veganism, we have to, at least from my perspective, grow our sphere of compassion to include not just the sentient beings who didn't choose the situation that they're in, the food animals, but also people who are not vegan. I don't judge anybody. But here's what I hear. Whatever the arguments are, they seem to always revolve around this. They want to idolize the caveman. They think that we should live and behave like the caveman did. Well, hunters, gatherers, and all of that, I think a lot of that, by the way, if you look at these some alternative anthropologists, they will tell you that the hunter-gatherer story has been mythologized to justify the passions of the palate in our current society. People want to live like caveman. They also want to they want to live like lions or live like animals. But why would you want to live like a lion who sometimes eats his own children? And if you were a lion and you met another lion for the first time, you would smell the other lion's butt. I don't think there's anybody that's going to do that when you meet somebody. So why would we want to be like animals? The other thing is, why would somebody not want society to progress? As if society couldn't progress when only a few generations ago we had slavery. So I'm going to wrap it up now, and I want to thank you so much for listening to Total Health from a Vegan Perspective. I've come to understand this vegan lifestyle as a liberation. So some of the ideas spoken about, especially we're talking about the way that the calves are taken away from the mother and so on, maybe not all of that's pleasant to hear. But from my perspective, all of this, the idea of plant agriculture is really good news. Veganism is a way out. It's walking through a different door than the doors we had been previously shown. And the price that you pay to walk through that door is giving up the animal products and switching to plant-based. But those of us who've been vegan for any period of time, I think we'd all agree that there's really no price to pay, because the more and more I eat vegan and travel around the world, the more amazed and more excited about the unending variation of food choices that are out there. I was in India in October, and the Indian food that they prepared for us in the different cities that we were in was, there's a lot of Indian food in Florida, but it was fantastic. then I come here to Japan, and not only is there a beautiful presentation of the food itself, but I'm eating wonderful pickle dishes and different tastes and different root vegetables that I really never thought of before. So it actually just keeps getting better and better. So that price that I was referring to walk through that door is really no price at all. And so it's a liberation. But in order for us to be free, we have to free them. In order for us to have love and respect and freedom and equality and justice, we have to be willing to give it. And so these things that we want for ourselves, in my opinion, we perhaps will never get unless we're willing to offer it to others. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close with a phrase that I would like to have you repeat on the count of 3, and then we'll do some questions. And the phrase that I love to end my talks with is, nothing tastes as good as vegan feels. Nothing tastes as good as vegan feels. Count of 1, 2, 3. Nothing tastes as good as vegan feels. Ladies and gentlemen, that's total health from a vegan perspective. Thank you very much.